Here we go.
Good.
Okay. Okay, so I've come to the National Autistic Society in Glasgow, where I'm here with someone else who's happily agreed to give tribute. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name's Callum. I'm an autistic person, but I am also a project coordinator for the National Autistic Society.
It's got just a few questions. I've only known about my diagnosis with Aspergers since 2013. I was almost 18 at the time. In fact, that's quite a late diagnosis for some people. Was yours later on in life as well?
Yeah, somewhat. I was 22, about to turn 23 when I was diagnosed. For reference, I'm 31 now, so I've been about 8-9 years roughly. But I had issues with autism before then. It wasn't that, as I think now most people tend to know, that autism wasn't something I developed at that point in life. I've always had it. It just wasn't recognised by anyone until I was that age.
Yeah, no, it's more understood now than used to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm very glad.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's very helpful that the people that are autistic to recognise that.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Before I found out, I literally just thought I was weird. I just thought I was just unusual. And, do you remember what you were like as a kid? If you can think back now, if the diagnosis or the lack thereof even was like a missing understanding of things.
I was always very much a kind of like happy in my own company kid. That's what my mum would say. Like I would, invent games for myself and play games, and just I didn't really want to be the person that played football with all the boys down the park or anything like that. But occasionally I would have these moments of thinking, that looks like something I want to do, so I would go and try to do it, but without really an understanding of why people do it and how people do it. So all I was doing was copying behaviours without like a concept in myself of like, oh, this is why people do this. And that to me wasn't, I didn't recognise that I was different from anyone else, but it just seemed harder for me to do all this stuff. And then throughout like growing up through kind of my teenage years, and it's been a very similar story of like happy in my own company, occasionally want to reach out to be more like everyone else and be more sociable, but then finding it a bit unnatural.
Yeah. When it comes to the understanding of other people, or a word I've actually come across recently is neurotypical.
Yes.
You know, a word for anything nowadays. A way to certainly help people understand more is through how it's like portrayed on screen. There's the good thing is there's a lot of stuff nowadays to cover the subject. For instance, there's the Undatables, which is I think very good for helping people with disabilities or autism or anything with finding love. But I particularly like, I don't know if you've seen it as well, actually probably the A Word.
Yes, the NS were very much involved in the production of that.
Oh really?
As a kind of consultative measure to make sure that they weren't being disparaging or insulting to the autistic community.
Yeah. So you actually helped advise how it was made?
Unfortunately, it wasn't me personally. It
was
one of my 3,500 colleagues out there that did it.
Yeah. When have you at all in life felt that it's harder for you to understand other people, or indeed vice versa, people may not understand you as well, and then this can maybe explain it?
Yeah, I very rarely look at people and think, I don't understand why you're doing things, because I'm fully capable, and what I do is I make assumptions of why people are doing things. The issue comes up when that assumption is incorrect and I don't understand why it's incorrect.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm trying to think of a good example of this, but if it's like, maybe like it's certain actions that like, well, it's a family member does in order to like, they've made decisions in their life, and I will look at that decision and go, well, they've did it for this reason because that makes logical sense to me. But then when I find out they've did it for an entirely different reason that I hadn't comprehended, I find it hard to even then process that once I've been told that, because it just wasn't something that I considered at any point. So it's not about like me looking at them and going, I don't understand you. More often than not, what's actually happened is I'm misunderstanding people, and then equally in turn that happens to me as well, because I think the way that I do things is like, I've never actually watched Star Trek, but I like Spock's a good reference to this, and being very logical about things, and I have a very kind of logical mindset towards things, at least my own internal logic. So when I do things that seem illogical to others and they can't understand it, well, to me it's perfectly logical, so of course that's what I would do.
I've had my own share of unusual fascinations or obsessions with whatever before. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if you've ever seen like one of those rows of light switches, if they're on if there's like, I don't know, 4 in a row or something, and then one of them's like pointing upwards. I just like, okay, turn that off, even if it means turning the light off in another place, or even eating things in pairs or stuff. If I felt like I had Skittles or Smarties, okay, 2 at a time, never one. Just it's a weird little bit of OCD as well.
Yes.
I think that's again, I just think I was just unusual. But yeah, it's certainly an indicator of explanation. But
I mean, there's the kind of the predictability. So like what we see in a lot of autistic people, and obviously I've just met you, so I'm not going to psychoanalyse this behaviour, but having the experience of working with other autistic people and a little bit of my own behaviours, creating these kind of patterns and routines throughout behaviours creates a predictability and a comfort in daily life. It's pretty easy to look at the social world and everything around you and realise how chaotic and unpredictable it all is, that maybe having a little bit of comfort at 2 Skittles at once, and it's always 2 Skittles at once, means that everything else is just a little bit easier to deal with.
Yeah, sometimes everything's just kind of just too much or too hard to process, and then we intricate things as small as or unusual as they may seem can just, I don't know, make it less discomforting or easier to process or anything like that.
Because it's everyone, like people with disabilities, specifically autistic people, get called out for their like odd behaviours and things like this, but literally everyone, neurotypical people, have these patterns and behaviours about things that when you challenge them on it, they don't really know often why they do it. It's more just, it's a thing that they've always done, and it's a thing that maybe a majority of society do. So part of my job is I train, like I train lots of different kind of groups of people and talk about autism awareness and understanding, and I go through the example of your morning routine to people, and almost universally people have a routine in the morning of, whether it's, when you get out of bed, what do you do first? Do you put on a dressing gown? Do you go to the toilet? Do you have breakfast? Then you shower? Do you shower? Then you have breakfast? And then people break it down further of like, some people put the milk in with a cereal. Those people are wrong. But there is definitely like patterns that it's just, and no one looks at that and goes, oh, that's a bit of behaviour that's associated with a disability. It's just, but there's often, by doing that every morning, it means there's one less thing to think about. It's just always that way, and then you can focus on, oh God, I've got to go to work and school and do all this stuff that I can't routine properly.
No, that's, as I said, everyone's different. As I said, every autistic person, every person with Aspergers is, everyone's got their own way of thinking, a way of looking at things. But it's just important to make everyone aware that it's nothing abnormal or weird or anything. It's just the way different people see things.
There's been a really interesting development from how I see the kind of history of autism going into the modern kind of era of autism. We used to talk about such small numbers of autism, autistic people, that you could almost define everyone within one group. You could find a shared connection. And then what we discovered is that as we slowly expanded the boundaries of what it means to be autistic and how you diagnose people, we literally went from 1 in 20,000 people to about 1 in 64 people now. That's the rate. Wow. So there's not any shared, well, there are some, but there are very few, like, I take any 64 people in the world of, like, random sample, finding one thing that connects all 64 of them is difficult.
Yeah.
So like having 64 autistic people and thinking of like the one thing that connects all them, that's an impossible task to do. So, as you said, of course every autistic person is individual, and it's made it challenging to understand exactly what autism is and how it's represented. Whenever we were talking about the representation in movies,
Yeah.
and you know, TV and media, and there isn't any way you can make a character that represents autism.
Yeah.
Because
Everyone will think differently.
yeah, at best you're representing probably about 20% of the autistic community.
Yeah. Some people can see something on screen and say, oh, I can immediately relate to that, but then someone else might think it's absolute nonsense, but that's just because it's not an instant correlation. I mean, I've thought that with a few things when we...
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Because I'm always conscious of the idea of when you see like representation of autism, so the one that kind of famously comes up, well, not officially autistic, is Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
And people have these kind of mixed opinions of that, and that is, it does represent some of the behaviours of a kind of high functioning, high IQ person that has a version of Asperger's, but there's thousands in Scotland alone of autistic adults well into their 40s and 50s and above who are non-verbal, who can't speak, who will live in a supported living community their entire life. They will have one or two support workers 24 hours a day with someone sleeping in with them at nights. There is no connection between that individual to me, to you, to Sheldon Cooper.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of, you're talking about almost different conditions just with the same label. And that's why we talk about this kind of idea of a spectrum.
Yeah.
And that's really important to recognise, because
different people at different parts of it.
Yeah, that's. I think it's sometimes unhelpful when people tend to think of autism as being like
monolithic.
Yes, exactly. That's a good term for it. Just something that's like, that's the name of the condition, because we should always refer to it as the autism spectrum.
Of course.
Because I mean, you can look at other conditions that are developmental disorders. Things like Down syndrome has a much more narrower field of the range of people than the developmental condition that is autism. So spectrums. There's a reason spectrum's a word that's there.
Yeah. Right, so thanks so much for your time. It's been a huge help. If you want to find out more about this, then visit the National Autistic Society and find out more about autism spectrum disorder, as I've now found out it's called ASD. But thanks so much, man. It's really cool.
You're welcome, John. Good luck.
And